Hello, my name is Marianne Dyer. I'm Program Director of Adult Redeploy Illinois at the Illinois Criminal Justice Information Authority. I'm here today to provide technical assistance for the recently released Notice of Funding Opportunity for Adult Redeploy Illinois implementation grants. As we go through this session, there may be a number of acronyms that are used. Here's a list of several. AF stands for Amplifund, which is the state's grant management system, and this is the platform on which all applications will be submitted. ARI stands for Adult Redeploy Illinois. CRA stands for the Crime Reduction Act, which is legislation in 2009 that created Adult Redeploy Illinois. GATA stands for Grants Accountability and Transparency Act, which is legislation in 2014 that established processes and standards for the distribution of grant funds in the state. GMS stands for Grants Management System, also known as Amplifund. CJA is the Illinois Criminal Justice Information Authority, where ARI is housed, and this is a state agency created to improve the administration of justice through grants and research. And then NOFO stands for Notice of Funding Opportunity. Today we will talk a little bit about Adult Redeploy Illinois and our goals. We'll go over the NOFO scope and get into Amplifund a little bit and navigate through the application forms. We'll also talk about the requirements of the program, review process for the applications, and any additional resources available. So Adult Redeploy Illinois, as I mentioned, was created by the Crime Reduction Act of 2009 with the goal to increase local alternatives to incarceration. We're a state grant program administered by the Illinois Criminal Justice Information Authority, and we're modeled on the successful Juvenile Redeploy Illinois program at the Illinois Department of Human Services. In pursuit of our work, we use performance incentive funding and justice reinvestment principles. We strive to be as flexible a funding source as possible, focused on local control and design, and we're mission-driven and data-driven. So our mission is to safely reduce prison use by building local systems that divert individuals from a prison sentence into more cost-effective programs that promote their reintegration into the community. ARI provides funding and technical assistance to Illinois communities to establish a continuum of sanctions and treatment alternatives that effectively address social determinants of crime and incarceration and that promote equity within the justice system. Our goals are to invest in results-oriented local programs that rehabilitate individuals and prevent relapse and future criminal behavior. We want to foster a strong, equitable community corrections system and support community-led justice efforts. We also generate and collect evidence in support of decarceration. Our current network is comprised of 26 sites around the state that cover 45 counties. We work in urban, suburban, and rural areas, and we fund over 50 prison diversion programs. The goal of this Notice of Funding Opportunity is to provide implementation grants and expand our network. We plan to support the implementation of local prison diversion programs, and we have the overall goal to reduce the number of people committed to prison on probation-eligible charges. Eligibility for these funds are county units of government or judicial circuits. A county may submit on their own or on behalf of a group of counties or a judicial circuit. Other units of local government or private agencies or not-for-profit organizations cannot apply on their own, but they can provide services, and they're encouraged to provide services as sub-awardees or subcontracts of a county unit of government. The funds available through this funding opportunity are $1.5 million. It's intended for implementation grants for new sites and current sites. The grants will range from $50,000 to $1 million maximum. Estimated number of grants to be awarded is 1 to 5, and the award period runs from April 16, 2025 to April 15, 2026, a 12-month period. So the implementation of Adult Redeploy Illinois is done through a local plan. And that local plan is actually a completed application through this process. And it's comprised of program narrative, as well as a logic model and letters of support. Successful applicants to this notice of funding opportunity will explain how addressing the risk, needs, and strengths of a defined target population through effective target interventions will lead to greater public safety and reduced reliance on prison. Examples of some of the programs to be implemented with ARI funds include problem-solving courts, drug courts, mental health courts, veterans courts, as well as intensive supervision probation programs with services and specialized probation caseloads for specific target populations and other enhancements. Regardless of the program design, the goal is to implement a local plan to establish and expand a prison diversion program with the following requirements. There needs to be a commitment to racial equity in that all who can benefit from prison diversion programming and services should have access, regardless of race, age, sex, or geographic location. The programs and services should be based on an assessment of risk, needs, and strengths and incorporate evidence-based practices. All applicants must commit to participating in a performance measurement process and any evaluation that comes from that. They must also establish a reduction goal and agree to reimburse if that reduction goal is not met. And if a problem-solving court is the program design proposed, that must be certified or in the process of being certified by the Administrative Office of the Illinois Courts. So let's talk a little bit about the local plan, which is the basis of the application. Per the Crime Reduction Act, each county or circuit participating in the Adult Redeploy Illinois program shall create a local plan describing how it will protect public safety and reduce the county or circuit's utilization of incarceration in state facilities or local county jails by the creation or expansion of individualized services or programs. A local plan is like a mini strategic plan and includes the following elements, which are also the elements of the application. Summary of program, description of the service area, statement of the problem, both the current situation and focusing in on the unmet need, the key partners that are going to be around the table in the implementation of this project, and then a description of that project, an establishment of goals, objectives, and performance metrics for the project. And then some calculation of the cost effectiveness compared to prison, and an acknowledgement of certification if it is a problem-solving court. And then the other part of the local plan is a budget with a detailed budget narrative. So as I mentioned, the local plan is focused on a target population and target interventions. Let's talk a little bit about each of these. The target population for any Adult Redeploy Illinois funded program are individuals who have probation eligible offenses. They cannot have offenses that require that they go to prison. They have to be eligible for diversion. They should be prison bound. So whereas diverting them into a community-based alternative will actually result in a reduction in the prison population and prison expenses. And by prison bound, we use the proxy of being assessed as moderate to high risk to reoffend. When establishing a target population for an ARI-funded program, one can use an entire eligible population, which we will talk about next, or define a subset that matches more closely with the target intervention that they're proposing. And we acknowledge that jurisdictions best understand their own local needs and are best situated to identify their target populations and design their local ARI program models. But the selected target population should result in the greatest possible number of individuals diverted from state prisons while preserving public safety. So in order to identify the overall eligible population for any ARI-funded program, ARI and the Illinois Criminal Justice Information Authority provide eligibility tables. They're available at the ARI website under the Grants tab. And it's county-level data that will be used in completing the program narrative/local plan. The eligibility tables include numbers of those people who have been committed to prison over the prior 3 years on probation-eligible offenses. The idea is to identify for each jurisdiction who has been going to the Department of Corrections in recent past, who could have been diverted to community-based supervision and services had ARI funds been available to support those. The data that we offer are available by county, offense class, and offense type, and include a variety of demographics. So let's have a look at some of these eligibility tables. These are downloadable, as I say, as Excel spreadsheets from the ARI website. So the first tab is selected court admissions, and this gives the overall picture of people going to the Department of Corrections from each individual county. We include both the people that would be eligible for diversion or have probation eligible charges by year, as well as those who would not be eligible. But we are only interested in the eligible number. Another one of the eligibility tables looks by each year more closely at what the offense class and type of the individuals who were committed to the Department of Corrections on probation eligible charges looked like. And this will give you an idea of whether there's a particular type of offense that people seem to be going into the Department of Corrections on that may suggest an intervention. Further, we provide demographics, and these demographics also further provide information on the individuals in the program by age, race, ethnicity, and sex. And this provides an opportunity to perhaps zero in on a target population such as emerging adults that would require a specific target intervention that could be funded with ARI. So the target population is used to arrive at a reduction goal, which is the primary performance measure for any ARI program. As we've said, the overall goal is to reduce the number of people going to prison. So that is done by establishing your target population and then calculating a 25% reduction in prison commitments. So here's an example of how that might be done. Using the tables that we just looked at, you could take the entire program eligible population as your target population. And this would be based on the 3-year average. If that number were 80, then your 25% reduction goal would be 20. In other words, you would agree with ARI funding to reduce the number of people going into the Department of Corrections from that target population by 20 individuals by bringing them in the front door of your ARI funded program. Now, I mentioned you can also come up with subsets of that total eligible population if you wanted to fine tune it according to the target interventions that you want to invest in. So perhaps you would focus just on the class 3s and 4s according to what the stakeholders in your jurisdictions wanted to focus in on. That might reduce that target population number from the 80 that was the full eligible to 60. And then your reduction goal from that would be 15. If you wanted to further look solely at the individuals that may have diagnosable substance use disorders, for example, for a drug court intervention, and you could estimate that that's about 2/3 of those in the class with class 3, class 4 offense type, and that number might be 40. Then your reduction goal would be 10. At the end of the day, you can define your target population and the reduction goal, but it must be a cost-effective alternative to incarceration. Now, any type of program, model, intervention, or a combination, as long as it's aligned with the goals of ARI and based in or informed by evidence to reduce recidivism, can be funded through with ARI dollars. And as we said, examples of this are problem-solving courts, which must be AOIC certified or in the process of being certified, a probation caseload or program that incorporates services or other system enhancements. And innovation and experimentation are encouraged with ARI funding. Regardless of program type, the interventions must follow these principles of effective interventions. It must be based on assessments. They must focus on enhancing motivation, so utilization of motivational interviewing. They must target interventions according to risk and need and responsivity principles. They must involve skill training with directed practices, such as through cognitive behavioral therapy. They should focus on positive reinforcement, in that we know that the most effective interventions have 4 positives to any one negative reinforcement. Should engage ongoing community support because reintegration to the community is the goal. And there must be a commitment to measuring relevant processes and practices and then provide that measurement feedback. So as mentioned, the reduction goal is the primary performance measure at 25%. So if awarded, sites must agree to reduce by 25% the number of people sent to the Department of Corrections from their defined target population. And there is the possibility, if that number is not met, that a penalty could be imposed by the Adult Redeploy Illinois Oversight Board per the Crime Reduction Act. The progress towards a reduction goal is measured by the number of diversions or enrollments in lieu of incarceration. If the ARI grantee is at risk of not meeting the reduction goal, we can enter into corrective action plan. But the Adult Redeploy Illinois Oversight Board does have the ability to assess a penalty, which currently is estimated to be half the cost of marginal cost of imprisonment. As noted, performance measurement and evaluation is key, and each ARI grantee must submit quarterly progress reports that reflect how they are progressing towards each objective, and also upload a series of data elements through electronic data file upload. They must also agree to participate in required external evaluations that are conducted to determine the effectiveness of the program. So that is what we're trying to accomplish with this notice of funding opportunity. Here's the timeline. The notice of funding opportunity is posted December 17th. And the application due date is 31 days from that, Friday, January 17th, 2025 at 5 p.m. In between that time, we will be collecting questions and answers and posting those on the website so that as people are going through the application process, if they have questions. The last notice of funding opportunity question needs to be submitted by January 9th. The Adult Redeploy Illinois Oversight Board will be reviewing the applications and approving the awards in February of 2025. And the program period is April 16th, 2025 through April 15th, 2026. So now let's look at the grants management system and see what this application looks like. Before we can even get into Amplifund, there are pre-qualification processes that are listed here. And you can go through these, and when we talk about the resources, step-by-step instructions for pre-qualification are available on the CEJA website. So Amplifund, you'll apply as an organization, will register first in the Illinois Grant Accountability Transparency Act grantee portal. And then each applicant organization must identify an individual or individuals who will be submitting the application, and this person will serve as the primary contact. So this is what the Amplifund registration page looks like from the portal, the GATA portal. And this includes Amplifund sign-in and creating the account, and also some grantee portal frequently asked questions. Now, one thing we'll talk a lot about here is that once you're in the Amplifund system, it times out after 20 minutes of inactivity. So in order to save your work, you should be continuously pressing the save and continue button until you're ready to submit. So here's the application for the Adult Redeploy Illinois Implementation Funds. This is what the landing page will look like once you click onto the Amplifund link here at the top of the slide and throughout the announcement. And then you will click on the Apply button on the far right. And that will bring you into the application itself, which includes opportunity details and a series of application forms, which we will go through now. But let's first talk about that a complete application, again, is going to be due January 17th, and it'll include all these parts, which we'll go over now. So the first part of the application is called the Uniform Grant Application, and applicants are required to fill in every section, check the applicant certification, and then mark as complete. And this is what that page looks like. And then the body, the greatest part of the application is the program narrative. And these forms are to be completed in Amplifund under the application forms section. Please refer to the program requirements and prompts for each question and set of questions when completing your response, and refer to the evaluation scoring as a guide when completing your response to see how each is weighted. Every program narrative the program narrative should convey need for the program, a discussion of the current efforts, and an understanding and implementation of required program components. As you are completing the application, please note that ARI expects and requires person-centered language to be used, referring to the people to be served as people, as individuals, as clients or participants, and avoiding any stigmatizing labels such as offenders or felons. There are 9 application forms that are part of the program narrative, and these, as you might notice, track with the parts of the local plan. The first is summary of program, and this is worth 5 points. And you will fill out the narrative section with a 5,000 character maximum to provide a brief standalone overview of the plan to use ARI funding to reduce the number of people with probation-eligible offenses sent to the Department of Corrections. At a minimum, this summary should include a description of the target population with a calculation of the 25% reduction goal, a description of the program model and the evidence-based target intervention or interventions that will provide supervision and services for the target population. List briefly the key partners and the community stakeholders in the program, and provide the proposed total budget for the program, as well as the estimated cost per person served. The second application form is the description of service area. And this is where you will identify in the narrative section the county or the judicial circuit that comprises the applicant jurisdiction. Here you'll provide demographic information, economic information, education, and criminal justice information that describes the area to be served and the conditions that give rise to the need for ARI-funded interventions. You're encouraged to use quantitative data such as that you would get through the Census Bureau, as well as qualitative data that describes in more narrative form the challenges faced by the jurisdiction. The third application form is Statement of Problem with a focus on the current situation. This is worth 10 points total. You'll fill out a chart, which we'll look at next, in Amplifund using data from the eligibility tables we went over earlier that are available on the ARI website at the Grants tab. There's also a narrative section that needs to be completed where you'll briefly describe the existing continuum of diversion programs that exist and the estimated capacity of each of those, and also the health and human services infrastructure that's available to work with the justice-involved population. So this is that form that you will need, the chart that you will need to complete using the eligibility data. The fourth application form is a statement of problem, now looking at the unmet needs. And this is worth 5 points. You'll fill out the narrative section and describe the investments that are needed to fully establish a continuum of community-based sanctions and services. And you'll here describe the gaps in the current system, both the justice system as well as the health and human services system capacity that must be addressed. Again, here's the reminder, since the system times out after 20 minutes of inactivity, make sure that you're saving your work. The fifth application form is the Key Partners form, and here, which is worth 10 points overall. First, you will fill out a chart, which we'll look at next, that's worth 5 points, that lists the key partners by title only, no specific names, and then briefly describes the role of each partner in ensuring the success of the program. The second part of the Key Partners section will be uploading letters of support, which are worth 5 points. So here's the chart for key partners. Well, you'll include the title and the department, agency, or office, as well as a description of the role. The letters of support that we require for every local plan include the key stakeholders of the chief judge or the presiding criminal court judge, the state's attorney, public defender, and the director of probation and/or court services. We feel like it's very important to make sure that all of these individuals and departments are on board with this program in order to set it up for success. You'll upload these as one file in PDF form in Amplifund. The sixth application form is the bulk of the application, and its project implementation worth 30 points. Fill out all the narrative sections that are in this application form. You'll describe the target population and enrollment criteria, the intake and assessment process, the plan to supervise and rehabilitate individuals safely in the community, the plan to integrate and leverage the existing services and programs in the criminal justice system and health and human services. Then you'll briefly describe the impact on the court system by increasing the number of people diverted into it. You'll describe efforts to ensure equitable access to the diversion opportunities and describe a plan to incorporate community involvement. In addition to the project implementation narrative, you will be asked to download, complete, and upload a logic model. A template is provided, or you can use your own, but it should include inputs into the program, the outputs, the different activities and participation levels that you expect to see in the program, as well as a description of the short, medium, and long-term options or outcomes expected. The seventh application form is an implementation or performance plan, and this will be filled out in chart form in Amplifund, where you'll be asked to define each step in the implementation and operation of the proposed program and include the staff position responsible and a target date for completion. Please include sufficient detail because this will help you internally monitoring the program as well as help us from an external point of view help monitor the process and make sure that you're on track. And this is what that full chart looks like in Amplifund. Again, make sure you save every 20 minutes. The eighth application form is goals and performance metrics, and you will fill out a chart, which we'll have a look at next. In Amplifund, this total section's worth 10 points, that chart's worth 5, and you also fill out a narrative section that will describe the organizational capacity and infrastructure to actually meet these goals. Apologize, I did not include the goals and performance metrics section here, but you will see it in Amplifund and just follow it step by step. The last part of the application form, which is actually 9, not 8, is the budget and budget narrative. And this is worth 15 points. And we expect that you will use the Excel spreadsheet form that CECHA provides. This is our standard budget and budget narrative form. And you will complete it by downloading it and then uploading it once done. The program is for 12 months, and both the budget and the budget narrative should reflect 12 months of programming. We also ask, in addition to completing the budget numbers, 5 points, and narrative, 5 points, that you calculate the cost per person served to demonstrate cost effectiveness and potential for state savings by investing in local alternatives to incarceration. And here is that simple cost effectiveness calculation. Again, you take your total budget and divide it by the service goal that you put forward, and we expect to see substantial savings from prison, which the cost per person served in prison, if you will, is $49,300. The types of expenses that you can include in your budget must be reasonable, necessary, and obviously part of the actual operation of the ARI funded program. It can include everything from personnel, training, and travel for your program staff, as well as program supplies such as drug testing supplies, and then a whole host of services for the participants in the program. Treatment services for behavioral health, mental health, substance use disorder, as well as wraparound services with transportation, housing. We find to be a very big need in several jurisdictions for the justice-involved population. And then our ARI funding can be used for incentives to encourage that positive reinforcement. You can also use ARI funds for data collection and analysis and helping to meet the requirements of the performance measurement requirements of the grant, as well as if you desire to do any program evaluation yourself. Vehicles can be purchased as well. This is a relatively new use of funds. It's rarely used, but it's only can be used for vehicles used by government agencies. Regardless of the funds or the types of ways that you want to spend the funds, need to be careful with any grant resources that you are supplementing what's already available at the local level and not supplanting. And here's a statement on what supplanting is, and you will need to certify that you will not be supplanting any local resources. This is the page that you want to see at the end where you have received verification of your submission. So the application due date is 5 p.m. on January 17th, 2025. All application materials must be submitted via Amplifund. Proposals will not be accepted by mail, fax, or in person. And incomplete applications will not be reviewed, nor will late submissions. The review process, once these applications have come in, include a screening by ARI and CJS staff, and then they are moved to an expert panel for review and scoring. The maximum number of points is 100, and in order to be funded minimally, the applications must score 70 points. Thereafter, it goes to one of the working committees of the ARI Oversight Board called Site Selection and Monitoring, which will review the scores and other information and prepare funding recommendations that will be reviewed and approved by the Oversight Board at their February 2025 meeting. Again, this is just a review of each of the individual application forms and how they're scored, totaling 100 points. There are additional resources that are available that we wanted to bring your attention to as you're completing your application. You can go to the ARI website, and as I said, at the Grants tab, you'll find this application information as well as the eligibility tables to provide the data for many of the application forms. But there's also an apps tab that has additional data sets and information on substance use and mental health disorder continuums. And we have information on our current network, including training and technical assistance materials, toolkits, and past webinars. On the CJA website, you'll find a lot of information, not only for the context of the criminal justice system in Illinois, but also a specific page that's just related to the Grants Accountability and Transparency Act, and that provides a variety of foundational webinars and access to technical assistance recording and other important prompts. As I mentioned, any questions regarding this notice of funding opportunity can be submitted along the way. And every Friday, every week, we'll be looking through these questions and answer them in a public format. They'll be posted so that everybody can benefit from the questions and answers. Just all the questions must be submitted to cja.adultredeploynofo@illinois.gov, and then you will see the questions and answers posted at the GATA page on the CJA website. Contact information for this NOFO is Stacy Woods, who leads our grants program, and she's the ARI program manager. She can be reached through that CJA Adult Redeploy NOFO at Illinois.gov. So again, let's look at what we need to do in order to be successful. So to apply for an ARI implementation grant, please submit all required materials in Amplifund by 5 p.m. on January 17th, 2025. And as we went over in individual excruciating detail, that includes the Uniform State Grant application completed and submitted in Amplifund, the program narrative, which equals a local plan in Amplifund. Then with the addition, you will upload letters of support and your logic model. There's also an implementation and performance plan, which you will complete in Amplifund. And then the budget and budget narrative is downloaded and completed in Excel and then uploaded into Amplifund. Thank you so much for your interest in Adult Redeploy Illinois, and we look forward to reviewing your application.